to Mount Anthony Union High School District Board of Directors. or
Recording
High
in
School District Number
progress.
14 Board of Directors meeting. Today is August 20th. I'm going to quickly go around the room and have people recognize, state their name and position for the notes. That way, that person will start with you.
Sure. Adam Carmichael, Principal of Mount Anthony Union High School.
Chris McGuire, Principal of Mount Anthony Union Middle School.
Scott McEnany, board member. Tim Payne, superintendent.
Stephanie Mulligan, board member.
Sandy Foster, board member. Katie Aiken, board member.
Glenn Thurber, board member.
Susan Plaisance, board member.
Dave Frederickson, board member. Leon Johnson, board member.
Mike Malloy, Director of Athletics and Activities.
Nick Goff, Director of Human Resources.
The first,
Evan
oh, and we have Beth
Wallace, Board.
and Richard.
Is-
The first item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have minutes, warrants, retirement, leave of absence, resignations, and nominations on the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve them all in as stated? Moved by Susan, the second
That's fine.
by Glenn. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to the finance report. We have the treasurer's report from June and July. Can I have a motion to approve their reports as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Scott, seconded by Leon. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, great. We will move on to the funding plan to resurface the track, and there is an action requested.
Is that?
Sorry. I apologize. I saw Holly earlier and I thought she perhaps was presented.
If I can speak, I didn't know it was on the agenda, but I've been speaking with, what can you say, what is on the, like, what action is,
It just says action requested. I was just looking for the.
The agenda says funding plan to resurface the track. Action.
okay, thank you. So I've been in discussion with Renee. I didn't know it was gonna be on the agenda this month. But one of the things that we want to do is get ahead of ourselves and start planning on getting the track resurfaced. It has been again, 20+ years since the track has been resurfaced. And one of the things that I talked to Renee about the end of the year was there was an athletics there was a fund balance in excess of money that was not spent last year in the athletics and activities budget. And one of the ideas was to take that money, instead of putting it into the the regular fund, can we shift it over to allot some of that for track resurfacing, which we're hoping to be able to then start the bid process and get it ready to go this spring, so that we can possibly get it resurfaced. If not, then we would look on putting it into like a budgeted kind of, but there is monies that were left over at the end of last fiscal year in the athletics and activities funds that we want to earmark for for track resurfacing.
And those, okay, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just gonna add, the money that's left over, would that be to go through the process of getting the bids and that, or that would go directly towards the resurfacing of the track?
Right, so we're not looking to rip the track apart and redo it. We're looking to
Right.
essentially
Resurface.
top coat, like, and get reline, recoat, really refresh what we have.
And so the action that is requested would be what?
So I think we have to get board approval to take funds that were, like, that were not spent last year from the athletics and activities fund and like, shift that over to like, cause I think that's one of the things that Renee had told me, we just can't do it. We've gotta, talk to the board about taking the monies, let's say, and again, 75,000, 100,000, however much was left in there. And use those, earmark those for track improvement, track resurfacing.
And that just like, so that I'm, it's because sometimes the athletic, it's not the activities piece of it, like the gate, like, or is this is what was in the general.
The
fund,
budget.
essentially, in the budget from
Yeah.
last year
That went unspent,
that went unspent.
yes.
Okay. I know that in the past, and somebody else can correct me, I know that in the past, like we have, as a board, voted to, reserve, I think like we had I think it's just about $1 million that we had held from a prior year roll forward, that we had held for other, but not to offset like the current year activity. I don't know. I think personally, I probably would need more information from Renee to understand what the total amount of roll forward, like as the, for the district, there is without reserving something. I'm definitely not opposed to it. I just want, I think we probably I need a little bit more of a presentation or understanding of what funds are in that are left over from last year. And we could probably look
Yeah,
at it.
and I think that's a great point and prudent. If there's 100,000 left and we think it's gonna be 75,000 to do the work, then and we go through the bid process and because we should, and it turns out to be 65, then, but knowing those things before we act, I think is important.
I know we do have like the fiscal, like the activity that was in the report from just like the updates, but I think I probably would want to hear a little bit from Renee in terms of.
And I also, along the same lines, is it okay to ask another question? And that is the lighting continues to be an issue. I mean, it's bordering on not safe. And I've heard through the grapevine, we can't even get the bulbs anymore that are needed should they fail. So what are we thinking about as far as upgrading lights?
So I believe there was a board, discussion maybe at some point last year that Holly brought forward about pursuing either an energy efficient, I'm not sure where that is, but I know that was the direction that at least operations was going to see what was out there from there. So I've kind of deflected that a little bit and left that on the operations side to see where, and I haven't gotten an update from that side of things.
And with that, that's not on the agenda. Can we
Yeah.
stick to just
Yeah.
the plan about the track and agree that we want a number before we make any action on it? I think we all
Yeah.
want to.
Renee, I didn't know this was on the agenda, so
So,
Yes.
for clarification, for what we're coming back, and this works out, I think this works out in our favor, because what is scheduled for September, in fairness to Mike, is Holly is coming to talk about building updates for each board during the month. So we can put this on our to-do list. That'll give Mike time to sit and talk with her and Renee, and she can update the board when she comes back and says, listen, this is what you're looking at. As part of MAU report, she can also talk about athletics. The lights don't work, the grass looks green finally, the track is tired. As someone who runs on it twice a week, it's tired. So Mike could be prepared to do that.
Yeah.
We can.
let's table that. I'd say like table it till next.
That sounds fine. And I think one of the, Renee, just because you're sitting, like, one of the questions that I had is like, how comfortable you'd be with having the board set aside funds that was rolling over for tax dollars, like that would normally roll over for this purpose. So yeah, so that would be great. if you could-
It's definitely within your purview
Yeah.
to do that, and once we actually close out 25, we'll be able to look at what we have for fund balance and then make the decision.
Okay, perfect.
So I think we just need some more pieces to the puzzle to be able to.
Sounds great. Is it possible to also request of Holly or for all of you? I know that under that track is decaying. What, like
Mhm.
stumps? So,
Future sinkholes.
correct. So I think from my perspective, I'm not advocating not to do something, but from my perspective, I'd like to know, like, if we resurface it and we have a sinkhole the next year, like how much tax dollars we're putting into a sinkhole as opposed to dealing with the underlying problem, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. That would be great. So why, go ahead, Leanne.
So along that line, before I do something, say something else, we were working off a list of things that supposed to be looked at, and then somebody can say that this is a priority off that list of items along that line. So I don't know where that list is, but you should be thinking about that. But I'm gonna formally make the motion to table this fund plan for the surfacing of the track until another date so that we can come back. So I need to formally do that. I make.
So we have a request to table, this until the following meeting, we can have a presentation for it.
I'll say.
So we, second by Scott, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Mike. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you, Renee, sorry. Sorry. Dear Panda for saying.
It's operations.
Thank you. Okay, we're move on to operations, and there is a minivan lease with athletics department. Mike.
All over the place today. So I had operations, this I knew was gonna be on the agenda. I had operations, put together a, kind of a proposal. Mr. Payne and I, when Mr. Payne was the principal last year, I want to say it was, maybe August, September, October. It was early in the game. And one of the things that I talked about was saving some transportation costs. And there are lots of times where we send a bus on trips that we don't need a bus because we only have a few people, going on the trip. We used to be able to use Enterprise in town as a rental van place for smaller trips, but a new Vermont state law would, required us, basically the important was we were no longer able to rent vehicles for school use via Enterprise. So that kind of kickstarted an idea to say, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a community-based learning minivan that could then double as an athletics minivan for those trips that have 5 kids, going somewhere, or 4 kids going to, a track competition, and we're paying for mileage sometimes for like coaches, and sometimes they're taking their vehicles, or we're scrambling, or we're putting people on buses where we're spending hundreds, if not close to $1,000 sometimes, where if we had a van that we could use, that would be ideal. So they use one in the SU, I think I the student services side of things. I think there's multiple ones. I wanted, one that could store things as well. So we went away from like an SUV type and went to a minivan that you actually have some trunk space in the back, and say you're taking the golfers, you can put golf clubs and kind of store that. So it was budgeted. This was something that we added to the budget. So it was expected, and the budget amount that we have is put in the recommendation, and then the kind of proposal lays out from there. So it would be used by the athletics department for those shorter or smaller trips with 5 or less, student athletes going on you know, a trip wherever. And sometimes it could be used for, kind of thinking, New England Music Festival, they're taking, you know, 3 trips or three students going on you know, an all-state or something like that. So I think it will be used a lot. And I think it's going to be good for the school to have this as an option and more cost efficient, I think.
It's also, you're also partnering with community-based learning, which will mean that they can be used during the day. It's an equity issue for kids who don't have transportation to get to job sites and work experiences and things like that. So that's helpful as well. So I mean, it's an opportunity to use these vehicles all day, which I would say the SU's vehicles right now are probably school day-based opportunities. And I appreciate my problem solving, trying to solve, instead of sending, you know, the 4 kids who qualified for New England track on a bus, putting them in a minivan, saving a little gas and being a little more responsible.
So is there a possibility for someone else to transport with that minivan that's not being used during the school day or after the school day? The ones that you said that are available, that the SU has already?
Those are through the, it's not a Mount Anthony, I think those are the student services as, so it's a different, we don't have any, like kind of control over those. And I think like their transportations are sometimes, I know last year they were bringing kids to Rutland and I mean, it's, picking up, you know, kids. So I think they're used a lot, you know, and they're more like, you know, structured based. So I think, I don't think the timeline would work, and I'm not even sure that
We did talk about that a little bit early on, that Sandy, with that was that their schedule is so individualized. It was a little harder than a regular school bus where you could count, there's an 8 o'clock run, a 12 o'clock run. So it proved a little challenging when we were initially trying to problem.
Okay, go ahead. No, I just want to let Beth have a question, so.
Oh, I'm
feel
sorry,
free to
Beth.
do it. No, when you're.
Sorry, Beth. I just want to know about policy 3101 and how you can keep and maintain those records for that transportation driver.
how I can keep and maintain the records as to.
That's the mandatory drug and alcohol for anyone who drives students on a regular basis. policy.
Right. So these are gonna be, again, I'm not talking, it's not gonna be open to whoever wants. We would have a coach, like, say it's the golf coach, or again, head of the chorus director, whenever they have to then go through our typical, kind of insurance bit and kind of back, like, I will know who's using that. They go through Miss Gabris most of the time in central or in our main office, and they'll kind of get all that, paperwork done. So we do go through what's that?
You're referring to the drug.
Yeah.
The drug testing.
Random, so random testing that's required.
If I remember correctly from Southwest, if there isn't something in this area for the district or this district because of that, like, I would encourage you to talk to superintendent of Southwest Tech, because they do, I'm sure they still do, because they do have vans and drivers. They did have, or when I worked there years ago, they had like a testing company where we would roll up a van.
If not, there's other options in town that could fill that need.
Fill the need.
Is- But there still has to be some.
I don't
type of-
disagree.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying there's other options to fill it, so I'm sure that we'll be able to follow,
should meet.
adopt, and deploy that policy.
And I know that you're saying that with 3 students, you may not want to bring a, 75 passenger bus, but they also have those smaller buses that, is there a difficulty getting?
The charge is the same, no matter if it's a big bus or a small bus. It's not that they're actually harder to get because those are slotted out oftentimes to, special ed or, specific, student services needs. And then you would need a CDL, like if we were to get like a Southwest Tech, it's getting a whole CD, it's a whole other, you know, kind of can of worms that you're opening. This is just a Toyota Sienna. It's just a, you know, regular minivan. It's not a, you know, a big passenger van or.
So how many times each year for the 6 or less, you feel that you'll need 6 or less students that you'll need or equipment? What is the number that approximate that you're using to decide on this cost?
I mean, I can count like it on, like, I mean, we're talking last year, it was probably 15 to 20 different times that we had to like figure something out, you know, in terms of,
Middle school track was for.
Correct.
For kids.
right. I mean, and so we sometimes combined with Arlington on trips to like save, like it's constant, like transportation is a huge part of my day. And it's constantly working to try to problem solve, but like there are a lot of times where the track and field coach or the like are driving like kids to events like in their own vehicle. And then we are paying, I understand, but we are paying mileage, and the mileage costs it's a lot. It's a lot.
70 cents a mile to reimburse.
Yeah, and I just want to ask a question quickly and
Thank you. I apologize. I can't be there in person, and I'm going to have to hop off soon because I'm at a parents meeting for the golf team tonight at the high school. So super relevant to golf, this transportation issue. Last year for states, there was an enterprise van that had been reserved, and then the coach got there the night before, and it was no longer available. So we all had to scramble to get our kids up to Burlington for states. My question is, what's the difference between a 16-passenger van and a minivan? As far as I know, you don't need a CDL for a 16-passenger van, and I think that would be much more versatile. And when you talk about, and I'm just speaking about golf, I don't know about ski. Maybe Scott, you have more information on like numbers of skiers, but for the golf team, the girls and the boys typically are going to all of the same matches, and that exceeds the 4-person. You know, you're talking then 8 to 10 players plus their coaches. So I'm wondering if, you know, there are huge cons to getting a 16-passenger van versus the minivan.
Yeah, Beth, this is Mike, in the kind of explanation, the bid summary, it's Vermont state law that we're running into. There's the education side, and then there's the state law. We have to have, it says the options explored only included vehicles with less than 11 seats as required by Vermont state law. And then there's also an explanation that you can't transport more than 5 students at us, you know, so our Vermont education high school law is, I think 6 people is the most that you can have in a van of people that are unrelated, you know, is kind of the law. So we did look at that. But this is, in order to not have a CDL, like through, like, or it may not be a CDL, but a bus driver's, certification, we needed to stick with 6. That was what was decided in the research.
Can I speak also to I like the idea that it could be used for the community-based learning as like an employer that receives some of those students. Like when there's a very rigid time, it's hard to make it work or allow the student to actually get an experience with the very short amount of time that they're given. And if they can't drive, sometimes that's a problem. And I know that it has benefited Southwest Tech to have somebody that can move people around. So that would be a nice added benefit. Was there some?
Yeah, I believe in everything that everyone said. The need is there. The way to deliver it is obviously more cost effective than due for. I'm going to speak directly to the terms and why are we leasing? There's the potential for overage in mileage, and there's also the potential in underage, if it's an actual word or underage or under mileage, where we're in a position where we could be giving back equity that we've paid for to a car. Why not buy it?
So I gave this to the operations folks to do that, do the work. I did not do any of the research and the bid process and stuff like that. So I think it is a similar, and others can speak about liability or whatever, but I think it's very similar to what was done with the SU, sport utility vehicles that they already have that they're using. Also the driver's ed vehicles, like I think they went into that. So I'm not exactly sure. I know we're allotted just a certain amount within the budget. We didn't get enough to purchase, and it was set, I think, for a certain amount per school year. So it's a 3-year, proposal for 21,000. So it's essentially what, $7,000 a year, is what they decided.
It will cover the car payment, but, and I mean, this is the last thing I'll say about it, 'cause I don't want to get dug in here, but if you're gonna buy a $40,000 minivan, why not own it in 6 months and have no payment on it going forward, rather than leasing it with the potential over, under, either or, and then giving up equity?
And so I think what we want to do, I think the safety is it's a 3-year plan to then reevaluate where we are at 3 years. And like, rather than, I think we're going to use it. We're going to I think it's going to be great, but I don't know that the original plan was to buy it outright.
I think it's an appropriate question, a great question to ask Renee. What are the pluses and minuses? What are there could be, I'm sure we leased, and we had a part of this conversation when we were talking about it on the SU board level for the vans that we purchased. Or
I apologize, 27 years of limousine business, I've just helped.
Yeah.
Vehicle purchases,
I appreciate it. But the other question I have is there consideration, about a year ago, the community-based program Dream, that's out of Willowbrook, I think, Applegate, bought an enterprise leftover vehicle that they had as a van, and it was $12,000. Now that was a year, maybe it's $15,000 or $18,000.
25.
It's still significantly less than any of these other options. Is that something that we could also consider?
We didn't pursue that. That wasn't what again, I'm going back to, September, October of last year when we sat was in your office, and we were kind of digging through all the stuff because again, the operations folks had done the investigation for the SU.
Yeah, I think we didn't even consider purchase because it was a number that Mike and it was a much bigger number to buy outright. So I think we said, hey, there's a model already existing in the SVSU of leasing a vehicle. We can't access that vehicle for a number of reasons, but there's a opportunity at the high school where 2 programs could benefit from having this type of transportation available to kids throughout the day. And $21,000 was a smaller ask in the budget process rather than coming back and saying, I'm going to buy 3 vans,
And I know my first ask was 11 like exactly what Beth's saying. Like, I want like a bigger one because I used to work at camps and I'd have, 13 kids in the back of the, vans, and I'd be driving them around and stuff. We found we couldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, can we get 2 minivan? Again, and we can't do that. So I think we just whittled down to hey, let's work on one and see how it goes.
For one other thing, Sandy asked a good question. How often do you use them? And it's a great question. We know that kids are every year there's gonna be teams who qualify for, it's playoffs really.
Yep.
You're talking about a smaller number of kids qualifying for, so that's gonna happen, but it really depends year on year what teams are gonna be competitive and go that far. in my mind, the lease is an opportunity to test it for 3 years. All right, we could answer Sandy's question. We used it X number of times, this many kids accessed it. We didn't use the mileage, that didn't work out well for us, or we went over the mileage and we overspent because we had to go back and pay for the overage.
But couldn't we also rent that minivan?
No, I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem.
Vermont law doesn't allow it, is what Mike was saying.
An enterprise that, right.
Yeah.
Scott, I had a question.
Yeah, we'll move on in a second, but, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm a proud minivan dad. It happened really suddenly. You know, I'm dealing with it. But what I'm going there is, you have to do,
You're really not.
you have to do a lot of research with that as a ski family. They work really well for us, and, all of the options that are listed here are all-wheel drive with the exception of the Odyssey. And when we're thinking about, there's not an all-wheel drive option in the Honda. And when you're thinking about what some of the winter sports and the roads that some of these vehicles could be on, it's not even the cheapest one, ironically, but, spending the extra and having an all-wheel drive, I think it means a lot when you're talking about
Living in Vermont?
putting kids in vehicles driving on snowy roads in Vermont.
So you're saying the Pacifica is not an
No,
all-wheel
you
drive?
can get all, you can get a
Yeah.
Pacifica, an all-wheel drive and a Sienna.
Yeah.
Um,
So that was the recommendation, is the Pacifica was the one that was recommended, so.
But they may not have
they
considered.
may not have
that.
recommended a, all-wheel drive.
Okay,
Pacifica,
so I'll
because I
double
don't know that every one of them are, so
Okay.
it's just something for you to think about.
Okay.
And I promise this is the last question I promise on this subject. Does putting the teams in a different vehicle than a regular yellow school bus that everyone else has, does that violate in any way a Title IX law, which doesn't equitably put the same kids in the same buses?
Oh, some of the teams show up in these
Oh, they're-
advanced.
Awesomely wrapped vehicles. I mean, what, the ones for the,
That- I'm
no, I mean, I don't know if it, I mean,
It's certainly become commonplace in
Are
other.
you talking about the small bus versus the big, I guess I
No,
don't
no,
like.
about a rental,
Yeah.
anything other than a yellow school bus.
So what ends up happening again, I'm looking at this as things whittle down, and like most of our teams are more than 6, 7 people. Like we can take Nordic Ski in that one minivan. They're not like, their equipment alone wouldn't, probably, fit in there. But when there's 2 kids that qualify for a New England, festival, that would be an option that we then could use. So I don't think it in any way, because these kids will all have been using the yellow buses or the regular buses all throughout the year. It's just as it moves along, there's less and less kids that are going to some of these, bigger events. So it ends up being, I think, a cost saver in the end, because we're using our vehicle as opposed to like renting something separately if we ever could, or finding or paying for mileage that somebody else is driving.
Thank you.
So yeah.
The last thing, Sandy mentioned something really important. As we wander down this path, we have to consider the protection of the school, the district, and the teachers along that line. There's a numerous documents in the terms of policies and procedures that individuals should be following. And so if we're gonna go down that path, the form, just like we had a regular field trip, fill out and you had things down there and sign. It would be great to have that so that the teacher or the instructor will know that they've done what they supposed to have done in protecting themselves, the student, and the district will not be at risk because somebody is going to be looking at the document and say, well, you maybe missed one or missed this out here, and you can get it all and you have it under control. That's all.
That's a good point. Because you might think I have a license, but maybe I don't.
Well,
I do.
And if you have it today, you may not next week.
True enough. True enough.
okay. Are there any other Questions?
That's not what we're doing, are we?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I just.
Yes, that was my question.
I think we're just looking for you guys to accept the recommendation as presented, that we can go ahead with the, like it's in the agenda, I know I printed it off, but is to at least for 3 years and then revisit after that, this, particular vehicle, and I'm gonna, Scott brought up the, all-wheel drive, we'll like check on, it's a Chrysler Pacifica is what the operations department came up with.
So I'll move to accept the proposal as recommended by athletic department.
We have Leon with a motion. For any second,
I'll second with a comment.
Okay.
Going to Superintendent Payne's comment that maybe this is a pilot program. We do it, we learn from it, and we know what to do when the 3 years is up.
Feel like we don't have enough information that there could be other options that were not explored. And I wish that we could do that before we move forward.
I accept your comment as well.
Thank you.
okay, so we have a motion on the table to accept as,
And a second.
and a second by, Gwen.
I have,
Now there's a discussion. Now,
I do have one, I take issue with one thing here. And maybe this is the marketing side of me, but we were gonna lease a vehicle from Sarah Nemer of Saratoga. When all our kids do, and we all ask all our local auto dealers for donations to our programs. So I kind of feel like, why go out of town? And whenever possible, I shop in Bennington and I think we should too. That's my only comment.
So let Stevens wrap it.
Yeah, even better.
They're.
I
we're gonna-
I think it's terrible to go out of town and out of state.
It's not that much difference.
It really isn't. And hey, we'll barter. Give him some football tickets.
I think, so my one comment in this is that the motion or the, request has a specific dollar amount that's tied to the Pacifica that that you're recommending. My concern is that, to Scott's point, that it may not be the all-wheel drive, and I would agree that I personally would vote for the all-wheel drive from a safety perspective.
I'm shopping it as we speak. I'll see if I can get this.
Right, with the Chrysler Pacifica, it's a series option, higher,
You're buying a different trim level to get the.
to get the all-wheel drive. It does not come standard. And with the Sienna, to my knowledge, it does.
That's my understanding also.
That will certainly deflect to a gentleman.
I take a lot of pride. in-
No, and to come out and share that with us, Scott,
It used to be Porsches and, now it's minivans.
Is there a way that we could amend, amend the motion to add enough?
Well, I think there would have to be a stipulation in there if you decided to go with the Pacifica, that it has to be.
That it has to be.
Right,
Okay,
but I stand by what I said earlier.
So is the way forward, you've given Mike directions. Mike, we would prefer you get a van that's all-wheel drive. We'd like it sourced locally if it's possible, but we empower him to figure out if there's a deal locally to do that.
Yes.
and if you'd like a ride along friend, I volunteer.
There it is.
okay, so are you making the motion or are you?
Okay.
Are you making,
A friendly amendment.
Yes.
oh, you're gonna have the amendment, okay, so you're amending the motion.
Well, you want to amend your motion?
Yes,
Yeah.
you making it and bring me up.
So I amend the motion to give Mike Malloy the ability to check on the Pacifica, make sure it's all-wheel drive, and try to get one locally if that's possible.
Okay,
So we
But we're putting the ball in your court.
gotcha.
That's my amendment.
Report back.
Something.
any discussion?
Still haven't come up with the piece on on this form that Leon greatly brought up. That whole piece of it, how do we regulate who's driving it? How do we ensure that we're going to be complying with the drug and alcohol testing policy? So I don't know that we have all our ducks in a row. So it just is a little uncomfortable for me to move forward without having those pieces in place.
But how do we handle that now already when we have
We already,
just drive, work as coaches doing it now,
we can
right?
do it, and before they get like, they go to Christina, they put their insurance in, they sign up, like, there's all this, there's nobody who's driving that I don't know about.
Remember going on field trips, having to fill it all out.
I
Yeah.
don't
There is a
think it's
point.
happening. What I'm saying is that I don't think it's happening right now, that we're not following that policy 3101 is what I'm sharing.
I can say that I have not given anybody a random drug test, if that's part of the policy, but I don't, I don't know that that's in my, like,
And so for me, these are two different issues, right? So one is the approval or the vote with respect to this. The other is, are we in compliance with respect to that? That policy is what you're asking, right? And we're not going to necessarily enforce that policy through just one purchase, that it sounds like there's other areas that we could have exposure in. So and from a board perspective, we're not gonna go in and evaluate what they're doing. So we're gonna ask, like, from my opinion, I would ask the superintendent to evaluate it to see, but we could do that outside of this motion. Is that something that you'd be comfortable with respect?
Absolutely, and then making sure that it gets done. I just
Yes,
feel
we can-
that we don't have anything. It appears, I mean to say we don't, I don't.
Just a
wanna say
point
that.
of clarification. So could we address your concern if Mike's gonna have to come back to the board and I would say report out that this is the deal I got, this is who we rented it from. At that same time, I'm happy to commit to coming back and addressing policy. We reviewed the policy, this is the form, this will be the expectation going forward. Again, it's a pilot. It's a good opportunity to revisit who gets to sit in the seat and drive.
And then I also think we should have not to exceed a certain amount of money, so that when he is going out, he
Oh,
doesn't get that luxury van that he.
oh, yes.
And I don't know what that is. So Scott, I'm gonna turn to you and ask if you're looking at those, bids that are there.
They range from 583 to 829.
So Sandy, just reading down on the bottom of the proposal, FY 26 budget season. As such, the funding was split between athletics and community-based learning and was budgeted for $8,040 a year. So that would be not to exceed $24,000 for like the 3 year. We were under that as far as the bid, but we budgeted $8,000 and $8,040.
And again, that could be based on a vehicle that is not what we've talked about here, which is an all-wheel drive vehicle.
Right.
So to be.
You know what I'm saying, in the budget that we put in, so what we settled on was a $21,000 vehicle, but I think we have a budget up to $24,000, $120.
Yeah, and I guess my only concern would be is the only way we get what we want, not luxury, but safe and all-wheel drive is at 30, then that should be our number.
And I agree with you that we want to make sure if we are going to do this, that it's done right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have had a discussion there. Are there any amendments to the motion, or are we?
I would amend the motion to say not to exceed $30,000 over 36 months.
Okay, so we have an amendment.
Well, do you have, I mean, I don't know if you said the money was already set aside.
There's a
but-
budget, we currently have in the budget $8,040, but I mean, I can find other, if I did need it.
So we have an amendment not to exceed the $30,000 over the 3 years, is that, okay. And, any other discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Second, looking by Kristen. Okay, with no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And I will note then work with, Superintendent Payne, to make sure that when we come back to report on, when they report on the ban, that we discuss the compliance with respect to, the policy. Is that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on, where there are no policies on the agenda, so we will move on to the administrator's report and back to the athletics.
Dominate. So Principal Payne, former Principal Payne, messaged me in June saying that the board would like a, kind of spring wrap up. And what I'm prepared to do, if this is what you guys are looking for, is give you a snapshot of the season we just had the following season. So, in the winter, I'll give you a fall wrap up and so on when I'm doing the next nomination. So the first thing was the spring wrap up, and I included that for the board. On the middle school level, it's all about participation and the amount of teams that we had, and we had 124 different 7th and 8th graders playing a sport in the spring. 3 softball teams, 2 baseball teams, both our girls and boys lacrosse team happened. We can thank the board for making that happen. It's only going to get bigger from there. And then track and field was huge numbers for track and field. So I feel good about the middle school numbers because that's the future right there. And then the high school side, you can see that we had a very successful, spring with, 3 SVL championships. We were the top seed in baseball, the number 2 seed in softball, the number 2 seed in girls lacrosse. We made the semifinals in boys lacrosse as well. And we had 2 individual track state champions. Logan Baker won the triple jump as a 10th grader, as 10th grade male, and Ella Palisano won the high jump as an 11th grade female. In addition, we learned that Ella was named the Gatorade track athlete of the year, which is quite an honor for her as well. And our participation was up as well with 167 unique athletes for the high school side of things. So if you want something different in the presentation or like more specifics, I'm happy to include more. I tried to keep it pretty basic, but just how many people and kind of did we win a team championship, and when there's individual titles, how do we do with that? So,
It's helpful. Thank you.
and then the other bit that is our fall coaching nominations. I gave you the memo. We're fortunate to have every position filled as of right now. And we've got a lot of good returning coaches, and we do have some, new coaches taking over for this year. I did also include our new boys varsity basketball hire, just so it's official. I know I messaged Stephanie back in June just to give you a heads up, but just to let everybody know where we're at. I think as of right now, we're sitting, pretty good with the staff, and everybody is, the high school has started and the middle school is beginning shortly. So,
Thank you.
take any questions?
Mike, I had a question on one of the checks, Huddle.
Yeah.
How many teams use Huddle?
So every varsity team uses Huddle in some way, and I'm saying the team. The way that the 80 package works, which is what we purchased, is they take their game and they send it to Huddle, and Huddle breaks everything down. It's a real nice tool for everybody to have, and then they're able to pick segments, and you don't have to imagine you used to watch, videotape for forever and, cue things up and stuff. So this is all, they can do highlights, they can do analysis. So the 80 package gives every team the capability. Even like lacrosse, you could use an iPad, film it and send it into Huddle, and they would do so even the fields that we don't have a camera, the Spinelli has a camera, the Kate's Gym has a camera, they can film their game away games. They can film it, send it into Huddle, and it'll give them full stats and game analysis and everything. So
Everybody's utilized.
yes, yeah, yeah. So we do have the 2 camera systems. The second camera is the NFHS Pixelot one. That's for the streaming. That's if people want to watch the games. But the Huddle camera is filming for people to do the analysis of the games.
Thank you. We'll move on to the high school report from Principal Comrie.
Well, I gotta start by thanking Mike for his marathon performance. Start us off there. And just want to take one more moment just to, as my first board meeting as principal, just formally introduce myself as the new principal at the high school. Those of you that I haven't met personally, Carmichael, I know we did introduction at the beginning, but pretty excited to be here tonight. So, yeah, let's roll into it. I'm also really proud to be able to start off this first report, sharing some big positives from our school about our AP results from the last school year. So wanted to start there. For the 24-25 school year, our results were outstanding and exceeded prior years. So just some overall highlights. We had 81 students who took a total of 151 AP exams past May across 13 different AP courses. 91% of those students scored a 3 or higher. So that's been a really huge point of pride this summer amongst our AP teachers, those students, and as the word is spread through our staff. Looking back historically, that percentage also shows an increase over the last 3 years. 2023, we had 80% and 82%. Now we're at 91%. So I really feel that speaks to students' hard work and the dedication of our teachers at the school, and that we're trending in that positive direction, even with such high scores, and we continue to improve. It's really encouraging. We had 35 students who were recognized as AP scholars last school year, 18 of whom were AP scholars with distinction, which is the highest level. So again, it just speaks to the work that's being done with our AP program at our school, and that we're really excited to continue and grow going forward. So, your highlights from last school year. Getting into the summer, we'll review from summer school. We had 2 very well attended, successful summer school sessions, ran for 2 weeks each throughout the month of July. We had the support of 10 classroom teachers. 100 students attended summer school and successfully recovered 138 credits during that month. So this is going to go a long way to setting those students up for success going into the new school year, and another encouraging academic moment for us there. Over the summer again, so going to staff, we had some new hires. So we're excited. We're welcoming several new staff members to the team this year across many different departments, so including some math, social studies, science, English, foreign language, student support services staff, library clerk, new secretary, new maintenance staff. So we have a really robust new team coming in, strong skill set, looking to continue the good work that we're doing there. Some building and maintenance updates. So over the summer, we're doing important maintenance, building updates, completing those, ensuring safe and welcoming environment for the students coming back. We did significant roof repairs over part of the building. We replaced over 30 interior doors. And probably most notably for the community, most visibly, I'm sure everybody's noticed the new digital sign on the corner of Park and County. So that's looking very nice. Colorful information out there. Getting more recent into this week. So yesterday and today, we welcome students and families into the building for our student walkthrough days. Allow students just to get comfortable, pick up their schedules, kind of walk through, find their classrooms. We had school pictures available for them to do, locker assignments, and yonder bag distribution started taking place for students that showed up. Speak more to that later here. Tomorrow evening, getting excited to welcome our 9th grade students and their families for our freshman orientation. That'll be 5 to 8 tomorrow evening. We're gonna have food available, and our admin team and other staff are gonna be on hand. We're gonna provide important information about the upcoming school year for the freshmen and their families, and just a good opportunity for them to come in, you know, get used to the school before the actual year starts. With that in mind, next week, our first days, right? So looking forward to welcoming staff back, as we know, on Monday and Tuesday for in-service activities. Then, what everyone's especially excited for, next Wednesday, we'll welcome 9th grade students back for their first official day of school. Provide a day for just the 9th grade students to come in, get adjusted, acclimated. So a lot of activities here this weekend and next with the first day, just to make sure it's a smooth start for our freshmen. Then Thursday and Friday, right, 10th through 12th graders will come back and join them. So we'll have a full school building by the end of next week.
Beth is trying to say she's in the meeting.
Yeah, I wanted to
To be 10, she just finds it.
Thank you.
So by the end of next week, school is up and running, feeling good. Looking ahead into the year, just some quick reminders for the first month here. We've open house scheduled for the evening of September 24th, 6 to 8 p.m. So that'll be a good time for families to come in, join us, meet their students, teachers. And some updates about the new school year. We have our new high school schedule set in place. I think the previous principal may have alluded to his experimentation with the schedule. And we have another iteration coming out this year to try. So we'll be running 5 67-minute instructional blocks for each school day. Students will have 4 of these 67-minute classes during the day. Their 5th block will be a pairing of a 40-minute interest block class with their lunch. So that will round out their schedule. In addition to those 5 blocks, we'll update on what was called Flex last year. It's now our seminar. So our Flex block, like I said, renamed the seminar, which is, for many of you probably remember, we used to call this block in the day seminar. So we're going back to that. And that will be a separate 20-minute block of time between blocks 2 and 3 in the morning for students. We are grouping individual seminars also into like larger pods. So students will have their individual seminar teacher, and each of those will be in a larger pod of 4 seminars. What this is going to do is give us opportunities to collaborate and connect with larger community beyond just the one seminar class. Okay, and allow teachers and students to partner up with each other, and also allow us to deliver our SEL curriculum in a more differentiated manner. So using the 4 seminars together in a pod, be able to continue to use our School Connect curriculum to deliver social emotional learning to our students. But instead of having 9th through 12th graders together, getting social emotional learning lessons that may be one day more appropriate for seniors than the freshmen in the class and vice versa, we'll be able to use the pod format to have lessons delivered specifically to 9th graders, specifically to 10th, specifically 11th and 12th graders that are developmentally appropriate for their specific age range. So we're excited about that new ability there. We're also going to have counselors assigned to each of these pods. Counselors are going to be able to assist furthering our personalized learning plan development during seminar. Again, in a very targeted, structured, more appropriate way. And counselors being assigned to the pods will allow for specific post-secondary information and support for our students, especially our seniors. Which another detail of the pods, there will be one seminar that's specifically a senior seminar in each pod. So be able to target post-secondary information to those seniors in a more concise and directed way. Then final point, going back to what I alluded to earlier, was said, part of the walkthrough freshman orientation and first days were distributed yonder bags, right? So everybody should be familiar with the yonder bags that we introduced last year. Very happy to be able to say that the high school was ahead of the curve, right, integrating our cell phone policy and yonder bag system last school year, which is convenient with Governor Scott signing into law this summer, the statewide ban on cell phone use during the school day. And we know that that's going to be implemented or expected to be fully implemented by next school year. But because we started the yonder bag system last school year, we're going to continue it this year. We feel like really setting ourselves up well, prepare our students, our families, our community, our staff to be relatively comfortable with them and the restriction on cell phones by the time next year it is a little bit more serious and, you know, we have to be complying with this law. So, feel really prepared, ready to work together with the entire school community to meet those new requirements. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've already begun distributing the bags and we'll continue through freshman orientation tomorrow night, first days of school, and by the end of next week, all students will have these yonder bags and be very clear on the expectations for using them. And we'll continue to support them through this year, reminding everybody about we're all just helping each other get ready, be in compliance with law next year.
Thank you.
I have, actually, I have one.
Yeah.
Is there, do you have a number on the number of open vacancies you have right now going into this school year?
We are, we can answer that question under superintendent's report, actually.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Happy to do that. We can give you a snapshot. So that means you cut that off.
Can say we are staff and you know,
It's all there. Favorite time slot. Love. First of all, I just want to say hello to everybody. It's been a little bit since we sat down together. And I want to say congratulations to Principal Carmichael in his new position, and also Superintendent Payne in his new position. And I look forward to working with both of them very closely in these positions. We, you know, as Mr. Payne and I did, we've talked about, you know, continuing our work, collaborating, working closely as an MAU team. But we've already had a couple meetings and discussions over the summer, so I'm really looking forward to the partnership. So I wanted to start with summer school. A lot of the same topics that Adam has in his report for me as well. Had a really successful summer school experience this year. We had about 40, I don't know the exact number, about 40 to 45 students that came and participated in our summer school experience. We also had about 20 students that participated in our Experience Lit Camp summer experience. You know, it was very engaging, really looking at alternative ways to engage students. Some of the things I'm really big on, you know, if the student is not showing proficiency, you know, you can't just try again with the same methods. You have to get creative, and you have to, you know, look at engaging them in other ways. And the staff that worked, you know, and the coordinator who spoke to all of you guys in the spring, Kelly Brooks, really worked closely with me and really, you know, they go above and beyond with their planning and their methods, and you know, really trying to, you know, interject student interest into what they teach. And it was a really, you know, I hung out with them daily, spent some time with them every day, and it was just a really positive experience. And that was the staff breakup of that was a site coordinator, 6 teachers, someone that focused on social emotional learning for each of the classrooms, who was a behavior interventionist. So that was the breakdown of the staff. Talking about facilities and grounds, we just hosted for the second year in a row the RAM clinic at the middle school. It stands for Remote Area Medical. It's with the Volunteer Corps. And they, they come up, it's really amazing undertaking. They come up with like, a huge tractor trailer truck and basically set up, a clinic inside the, wing of the school and the gymnasium and the cafeteria area. So I just know that it's a free medical clinic and it serves a lot of people that, might not be able to get the support and the help that they need. So that was a really good thing. And and I just also want to point out, it puts a real, it creates a real challenge for the maintenance crew at the school. They embrace it with open arms, certainly no complaints. But the reality is that, they have a big job to do. We're doing summer school for the month of July. We have the RAM clinic coming in, for 3 days in August. And, they're trying to go through, get the building, cleaned, waxed, which, you're bringing all the, everything out of every classroom, buffed out and everything. And then, the normal repairs of the building as well. So they did a great job, with all of that, whether, the painting, the cleaning, the waxing. And then just one other point on facilities and grounds, actually, Adam reminded me of it. We also had our digital sign fixed over the summer, finally, so that was good. I pulled in one morning and the sign was like out of the brick frame. And as I looked at it, I thought it was like like a virtual reality like picture of Vermont. I had to double take, like, no, there's just nothing in there. And it's just blank, so but that's been replaced. They came back, back the next day or two, and it's all set. So that's working well. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Mark Hayes, our maintenance foreman, who was just hired mid-year last year. So just kind of learning the ropes, between 8th grade celebration setup and everything, and orchestrating this whole cleaning of the school, and Tony Donofrio for support with that and the whole maintenance group. We have student walkthroughs happening this week at the middle school. It's always super exciting. Having awesome conversations with kids and families. Just so much excitement in the building, lots of nerves, but it's just really fun. It kind of, on Monday when it started, it interjects this like extra excitement into me for the school year, and it just kind of reminds me, why I do this. So those walkthroughs happen Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this week, 9 to 2. We also offer walkthrough times Tuesday, Thursday during that same time, but we also offer an evening hour, both on Tuesday and Thursday, 5:30 to 6:30. I hang out and work with families, print schedules, give some tours and stuff. Mrs. Austin, one of my associate principals, helped me out last night for the evening slot, so I appreciated that. I learned, over the last couple of years, I always say, I really should have someone come and help me with this and not be the only one here for this year. And then, of course, you get busy and everything, and then the evening comes and you're like, but Mrs. Austin had my back this year, so that's cool. Staff and service days, obviously, you guys know the days, Monday, Tuesday, next week, 25th, 26th. We're focusing on a simple but very important theme of supporting the whole student, the whole child, behaviorally, academically, socially, and also supporting our staff in doing that. And that's an important piece of it as well. So we have an initiative that we've started the first year I was principal. Actually, before I transitioned into it, Mr. Payne and I worked on it a little bit together back 5 years ago. It's called Cultivating Community. And we really focus for the first month on some, again, simple but really important things. Establishing norms in classroom settings with students, really engaging them in the process, not just saying, hey, this is what happens in this classroom, but like saying, hey, what do you want our classroom to be like? How are we going to behave? How are we going to kind of hold each other accountable through that? So norm setting, reviewing expectations per our, PBIS system and our behavior matrix for the school. We have expectations listed in all the different settings, classroom, hallway, cafeteria. And we really, get into not only, again, talking about them, but also kind of modeling what that looks like and having students practice what that looks like in those different settings. So that's a big part of it. And then also community building activities. A big part of middle school, philosophy and education is building that sense of community on your team. It's a smaller, it shrinks the building down from 500 kids, 100 staff, 60 teaching staff roughly, and shrinks that down to, a more manageable group to get to know and feel comfortable with. We also are gonna be diving into our pillars at the middle school. I think you're gonna hear me talking about this more this year, really leaning, this is something that's existed for a few years at the high school. It connects to our mission and our vision statements, but I think it's even more important than them. And they're simple pillars of consistency, growth, and engagement. And so, everything we do, we kind of look through the lens of that. We're also engaging students in conversations about what consistency, growth, and engagement means to them, not just through the staff and the administrative view. So I'm excited. That's a little tweak to our cultivating community initiative, and I'm excited for that. New hires, give a little report out on that. We had 2 math openings. We both filled both of those openings. They've been approved by the board, and they are excited and in the building. Foreign language teacher, who is also excited and approved and in the building. We're in the process of interviewing for an academic interventionist. We're working with a number of candidates, and we'll likely have some information over to Mr. Galt very soon. We're searching for a clinician still. There's had a few challenges in the search, but I'm optimistic, and we're searching for a school-based clinician. And we are in the process of hiring a special educator as well. So, we technically have, to answer the question about openings, technically you'd say like 3 openings, but 2 of the 3 are kind of well underway in the hiring process. And that is my report for tonight.
Thank you. Very thorough.
It's a tough act to follow with the.
Both
guy
were
next to me,
very
you know?
informative.
We could move on to the superintendent.
So, I'll just review this. We're working our way through, Nick and I are working our way through the calendar as board meetings, and I'm gonna say this at the start. Some of you have already seen some of this information, but in order to organize my brain and, answer feedback from the board of making presentations from the superintendent relevant, and useful, we've mapped out a calendar, and so Nick is my leadoff hitter this evening to talk about staffing. Kind of a snapshot of the district, some challenges at the state level, just to help folks be aware. In September, my plan is to bring Holly Anderson as Chief of Operations in to talk about buildings and now athletic facilities. We could talk about that. October, we're going to talk about grants, especially given the uncertainty of the past summer. My hope is that by doing staffing, building, and grants in that order, that will allow boards to be better informed as they get into the budget work of November and December. And then we'll come back in January, and we'll talk about student achievement, work our way into the reseating of the board in March and things like that. But a little bit of logic as far as the presentations. They won't dominate the agenda. Athletics will do that for this board going forward. But Nick is the first presentation this evening. And again, some of you may have seen this information. We're going to share this again next week with the SU. I'll do a little bit of changing up of that, but you should be able to plan on what director or presenter you're going to see from the superintendent's chair as we go forward the next couple of months.
So, the report that I'm gonna give is sort of twofold, a bit of staffing update and then some licensure, information. Adam and Chris made my job a little bit easy on the staffing side. So MAU wide, you employ roughly 191 employees, as Adam indicated, fully staffed at the high school. As Chris indicated, 2 of those openings he mentioned are actually SU openings, special educator accepted this afternoon. So that's wonderful. So the clinician we're still looking for. And the academic interventionist, which is the MAU position, we're in talk with that candidate right now. So if they accept from an MAU perspective, we would be fully staffed at both buildings. So I just want to pause for a moment because it's probably been 5 years since we can say that. So that's really wonderful. The second part, so the staffing part, very easy. The second part here is licensure. And there have been some requests both from board members, but also from just community members and parents about licensure. What does it mean to have a provisional license? Are we seeing more of them? What does it mean that my child has a teacher with an emergency license? What does this all mean? So this is included in the board packet, so you can read it at your leisure. There's a lot of links in there with lots of information and articles that you can read as you have to. We'll read all of this, but I want to highlight a couple things. First, as an SU, we have 350 teachers that's spread out across all of our schools.
MAU specifically has roughly 109 licensed educators between the two schools. Of those, 14 will be on provisional emergency licenses. So what is an emergency? What is a provisional license? An emergency license, which I don't like the name, it sounds very scary, but that's the name from the AOE. It's a 1-year temporary license. It's granted to a teacher who has a bachelor's degree. That bachelor's degree need not be in their discipline, right? So it doesn't need to be a math degree to get a math emergency license, okay? Those can't be granted for certain things like special education, nursing, administration, things like that. A provisional license is a 2-year license granted to teachers who meet a number of different requirements, including having a degree or coursework in their field, having completed the praxis exam in their field. So a provisional license is a higher bar. You have to have either, experience, education, or past credentials in that field. So it's just important to kind of understand what those two are because we are seeing more of them. The chart that I've included here is actually from an article that I'll reference more than once. It is an article from VPR from 2024 that talks about the rising number of provisional and emergency licenses in Vermont. And what this shows, it maps out the number of those licenses between 2017 to 2024. One would presume, certainly anecdotally from our experience, that if that chart continued into 2025, that number would continue to rise. For those of you who can't see, this is nearing 900 out of about 8,000 licensed educators in the state of Vermont. So there are a lot of provisional and emergency licenses, and they're increasing each year. Over that same period, just for reference, over that same period, the SVSU went from 22 provisionally licensed teachers to 41. So our data essentially is mirroring what we're seeing across the state, which is an increasing number of provisional and emergency licenses. As I said, specific to the MAU, of 109 educators, you're going to have 14 this coming year who are covered under provisional or emergency licenses. I want to jump over to that article. I said I would reference it. Of course, when I share, oh, it worked. There we go. There are two other charts. I think this is just a really great article that helps frame this all. I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. Make this easier to see. This article is something we certainly know, at least we've seen on our end, and this is the number of people completing traditional teacher prep programs in Vermont, which has decreased substantially since from 2000. This is down to 2022. And this is part of the national and state teacher shortage, right? Less high school graduates are going into education prep programs. So less teachers are graduating. There's one article linked here that talks about the national shortage being estimated at 200,000 teachers. So it's significant. And so it's playing into the increase in provisional emergency licenses as people come from other industries, second careers. They're trying education when they didn't necessarily go to college for that purpose. The other interesting chart from this article, does anyone like to subscribe? This is a statewide chart. Again, Vermont Public Radio put this together with data from the Agency of Education. This is 2022, so it's a few years old, but it maps out the whole state by school and what percentage of their teachers are professionally licensed, meaning not provisional, not emergency. I have my professional license. That ranges from schools that have 100% to schools that have 50%. So when we go down to our corner of the state, all the way down here, and we highlight our schools, MAU specifically, this is 2022 again. Middle school is at 90%. The high school here at 80%. 80% is from our numbers, the lowest of any of our schools would be 80% that are professionally licensed. So 20% or fewer that are professionally or emergency licensed. When I flip back over to my presentation, the second page here, and I'd encourage people to read this, I won't read all of it, talks about opportunities. So this is the new landscape of what licensing and hiring looks like and will probably look like for the foreseeable future. What are our opportunities? What have we done? And what can we consider doing? So I highlighted some of the things we've done as an SVSU, things that not everybody might know about, hiring teachers through the H-1B and J-1 process. So we have now 8 teachers in total who have come to us from other countries who are working under H-1B or J-1 visas. The Philippines, we have a teacher from China, other places like that, and we're continuing to work on that process. One of the articles I cited on here, this is just a plug for the SVSU, talks about, I think, North Country being the first district in the state to do that. They were about a year behind us. So SVSU was first in the state. Talk about some of the things we've done with professional development funds that the board graciously approves through the budget, including sponsoring programs through Castleton, Vermont State University for both licensed administrators and licensed teachers. And that's something that I hope we can grow over time. Funding teachers who enroll in the Grow Vermont Ed program. So those are teachers who have their provisional license, right? So that's not going to help us with a pipeline of growing our own teachers. But it helps us once we get that teacher who says, I want to go through the provisional license process and I'm going to go through peer review. Is supporting them through this program. It's a collaboration between the NEA and Vermont State University to help teachers through the peer review process, which is a daunting process. And a lot of folks are going through it, but this is proving to be a fantastic program. We're getting really, really great feedback from teachers who are doing it. So we're funneling teachers who are going through peer review into this program. It's led by her name's Juliette Longchamp. She's the director of, I think, professional learning for the NEA, for the National Education Association of Vermont. And then the last thing that I've noted as, something that the board has supported and done is the increasing salaries. I can't put a number on what that has done for our fill rates or our retention rates, but given that both of our schools anticipate being full, given that I gave a pretty similar with the elementary district, that they were almost entirely full, I have to think that while I can't come back to you with data and say the salaries helped, I have to think that that's working wonders in terms of recruitment and retention. And the last thing, these last two paragraphs, very brief, some things that are happening in other parts of the state that we as an SU could think about. Modifications to our contract that might permit the granting of experience for teachers with industry experience. It's something Southwest Tech does. Now, of course, they teach a very different curriculum, but something that we could consider. Other things would be sponsoring things like apprenticeship programs. We're seeing those pop up. It's something that we might even be able to do through the NEA if we have a large enough cohort that was interested in doing an apprenticeship program. And then at the state level, I would not presume for a second to tell the state what to do. But the AOE has started to open up waiver options and flexibilities that simply didn't exist, granting waivers for certain tests when people get within certain standard deviations, making it slightly easier. It's traditionally a pretty rigid process, making it slightly easier. And other states have started to do similar things, even more extreme things in terms of changing pathways to teacher licensure. So second page, just some opportunities. And at the bottom, a whole bunch of articles, not all bad stuff, not just about the teacher shortage, but about what other states are doing, what other school districts are doing. And so just good reading about reality of licensure and where we stand. Yeah.
During the new hire orientation, do you go through the process of what happens after the 2 years if they have not?
Yeah, so I actually do individual licensing conversations with every teacher. So today, I think I met with 4 different teachers to help them write and submit their provisional plans. So they absolutely know provisional is a 2-year license. If you don't do it, technically, don't let anybody at home know, there's a 3rd-year extension option for teachers who have made significant progress and have run into obstacles. But yes, they know that they don't become professional licenses. They entail a lot of work. You've got to either go back and get a degree, go through peer review. So yes, we're very clear with them that there are time constraints that they have to be mindful of.
There's probably not enough data yet, but what are the retention rates for these teachers? And can you guesstimate that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say that anecdotally, so I don't have the data to support it. I would say that retention rate for a provisionally licensed teacher is going to be lower than a professionally licensed teacher. Not all of our provisionally licensed teachers will ultimately get their professional license. Most of them do, but some of them just the whole prospect is daunting. Starting a new career in a new industry they did not get trained for, while also going through peer review or going back to school for their master's program, taking their praxis tests and everything else that the job entails. So I would have to assume, I feel comfortable saying the retention rate for a teacher hired under a provisional license or an emergency license is lower than someone who's hired under a professional license.
Leon had a question with Beth, I think.
I was gonna let the statistics fool the community out there. When that number rising up in terms of provision license, we're doing a hell of a job in education of kids and students. And that's what we need to know and point out. The rigorous requirements and all these things that are tied around, and I think you hit it, Nick, saying, we've got people that are not caring about going to college and saying, getting a degree, and we're pulling them in from other places, but the restrictions and on who we can put in those places have not yielded, and you're trying to get them to give up some of that. It says, we're gonna give some points for this, so we're gonna give some points for that, so that we can feel the requirement that are structured for those areas. By no means education is being sacrificed out here. I just want you to know, I'm seeing this school and this place shines at all of the classes that we've run, and that's been 25, 30 years I'm seeing it. So I want to make sure that the parents hear that and the public hear that we are really working hard on our kids.
Yeah, and I would say, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Leon, I think that we absolutely heard that with a 91% AP.
Right.
That is fabulous. It's a fabulous number. It's a
Before
big cheer.
with the math, when we talked about all of the math AP, requirements and so forth, I brought it up 2-3 years ago, saying, okay, just look at what's happening out here. But you could be easily, the public can easily look at it and say, well, the number of licensures and all this kind of stuff just skyrocketed and they get sort of shaky. I wanted to make sure we point out that that's not the case.
I think the highest percentage, if I understand you correctly, was 20% in any one building of provisional or temporary. So I think that's another piece as well.
I want to thank the schedule and have the framework of knowing what's coming as far as these go. I think that's going to be really helpful for us. And I would also like to thank Nick for this information. I think too often when I've heard provisional and emergency, it's come almost as in a negative context without understanding of that's living in a vacuum. Without understanding of the broader environment that is the state of Vermont and the nation. And so having this information, having it be public on Catamount, on Cat TV, and I hope it's the type of message that really should also be a part of a banner story, and I hope they hear this too, because it really does help quell fears and misconceptions that are out there. And so thank you.
Beth has a question.
Got a question?
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation, Nick, and for taking time to schedule this, Tim. I have 2 questions and just actually 3 questions. So as someone who went through the peer review process to add an endorsement to my educator's license while I was working, while I had a young kiddo at home, that is a really big commitment. It's a daunting process. And at that time, I was fortunate enough to have a mentor assigned to me, Karen Burnell. If she had not been holding me accountable and helping walk me through that process that is also very lengthy, I don't think I would have done it. So my question is, do we have peer review mentors for those folks with provisional licenses who are going through that process? First question.
Yes, so every new teacher gets a mentor regardless of whether they're doing peer review or not. But specifically, we're leveraging the Grow Vermont program. We're making it just shy of a requirement. So I would say we don't make it an absolute requirement, but every single teacher that we've hired in the last 2 years who's going through peer review, we're encouraging them and strongly encouraging them to go through that Grow Vermont Ed program, because what that provides them is, first of all, it's a accredited course through VSU led by, like I mentioned, that director of professional learning for the NEA, who's guiding them through the entire peer review process. So they have I would say even better than sort of a mentor here who's done the peer review. It's somebody who, Julia Longchamp scores peer review portfolios, right? So she's the expert. So she's leading them through in this course. I think they meet Tuesdays from 4 to 5:30 is the course for the fall semester. So we feel so strongly about that we're prepaying that program for teachers who do it instead of our normal reimbursement model. It's the same cost to the district, by the way, but we're doing that because we don't want there to be any obstacles. If somebody says, yes, I want to do that, and you're telling me this is going to make my process better and more enriching, then please let me do that. Because prior to the existence of that program, we saw teachers really struggle through peer review for all the reasons you said. They're working a brand new job. They've got families, they've got other commitments. They're trying to learn the trade, and they have to do this very daunting 1 or 2 year long portfolio process. And so we're taking full advantage of this program and using that as basically our model for guiding people through the process.
That's great to hear, Nick. Thank you for that. Along the same lines, the apprenticeship that you mentioned, I appreciate having recommendations for our boards on how we can continue to improve recruitment and retention. Not a big fan of waivers because I do think that our teachers need some preparation and actually teaching. You know, subject matter isn't enough in my opinion. But I've seen the power of apprenticeship models for early childhood education and would strongly support us investing in that. I know that there's public school precedent for that in the northern part of the state. And I'm wondering if that's something that the MAU board could decide to support independently of SVSU, or would that be an SVSU wide decision?
That's a good question. My immediate response would be, I don't see any reason why any individual board couldn't do it. I think the need is SU wide. I think when you look at shortages in STEM, so your math and science teachers specifically would be mostly middle and high school district, middle MAU district. But there's no less of a shortage of elementary teachers or special education teachers, which are going to be elementary and SVSU. So certainly, I assume it's something that through the budget, the MAU could support individually. It could be something we could look at as a whole SU. And there are models you mentioned. I think Colchester is one that's done something. So there are models out there that we could look at. And if they're getting good returns on it, we could get some of that data and then come back to you and say, hey, here's a success story, and potentially talk about what that model would look like, what it would cost. And we could have those conversations as we enter budget season, which will be better than we think.
Great. I think those of us, I have one more. Those of us on the SVSU board should remember that and carry that back to that board as well. But the last question I have is around retention of new teachers, especially from outside of the district. So folks who have met here or who have moved here. I was fortunate to meet one of the new teachers at the high school doing a walkthrough yesterday, gentleman who he and his wife had relocated from Milton to come teach at MAU, which was great to hear. The first thing I said to him was, so you found housing? Because I think that's a huge barrier, right? And he said, well, it was difficult, but they did find housing. Now they're looking for doctors, right? So we know that when we're recruiting people new to our community, that retention is an uphill battle. And is something that would make our lives easier if we kind of are proactive in that retention piece. So Nick, I happened to mention this to Matt Harrington earlier today too, who's the director of the Chamber of Commerce, and they have a special grant through the state called Grow VT, not to be confused with the Grow Vermont Ed program, but they have a staff member specifically designated at the Chamber of Commerce to help businesses, nonprofits, local organizations with retention of workforce new to the area. And part of that, it's a completely free service. Luis Lascari is the guy at the chamber, and he, works one-on-one with people who have recently relocated to help with things like finding healthcare or finding a notary or a vet or connecting them to Shire's young professionals so that they can make social connections and are more likely to stay in the area. And so, Nick, my last question was whether you've had any connection with the chamber and Luis specifically, or whether you would consider exploring that.
Absolutely. I have not. I know Luis came, or either Luis or potentially Luis's predecessor came to teacher orientation last year. We had a booth set up, booth model where folks, new teachers were able to go and visit different booths. So we do have a connection with them. I have not spoken with them specifically about this, but would be happy to, because both recruiting and retention is affected by absolutely housing. We have had teachers, staff members, none this season, but I remember last hiring season, at least 2 had to withdraw offers, rescind their acceptance because they couldn't find housing. So on housing alone, and I know finding primary care physicians, pediatricians. So this is a service I didn't know about, but I love it. I would be happy to connect with Matt and Luis and find out more. So I appreciate that.
And Beth, I would add to that I have a request for a meeting with Dan Monks as interim town manager. And I've reached out to Trey Dobson at the hospital to try to connect I don't think we've had a presence of those conversations for a while, so I'm just trying to plug in. Of course, the hospital's in the middle of a transition for leadership right now, so that may take a little bit longer, but I think that'll be positive too, all three groups are facing the same challenge of getting people here and then having them stay. So I'm happy to participate in that conversation too.
Great to hear that
Actually,
that's
Dan-
happening,
Dan-
Tim.
I saw Dan today, just at the post office, and that he mentioned that he's looking forward to like. Whatever meeting. One quick comment that I know this is, thank you for the presentation. I think it's really helpful. Going into budget season, what I want to highlight is that one of, part of our contract with teachers is to provide, the education component that you're speaking of. And after going last year, spending a lot of time in interviews, we had very qualified internal candidates for the positions that I sat in on. And that is because our community's investing in training them while they're on the job. And I think that's I believe that's why a component of why people would stay. Yes. Also, so, just, for the next round of negotiations, that should stay in for my opinion. But anyway.
I just have two updates from my seat. First, Nick, thank you, sir, for hanging out. We're gonna be on the road next week. I'll talk about our next show if you want tickets in advance. So two things in the community. I just want to recognize folks. I love to read my banner in the paper. So the I'm Afraid art project. I don't know if folks have been downtown lately. It's posted on what I remember as the old Castle Theater building. It's a piece of art that was created by Tracy Malloy, connected to Mr. Malloy.
Sister, yeah, she was an MAU graduate.
Yeah, Shaftesbury resident, MAU graduate, currently living in the big city.
Two and two together.
Yeah.
Now I know.
I wouldn't either. Working with two of of the MAU art teachers, Annie McNeese and Tracy Bushy students, created this piece. I encourage you if you're out and about downtown to take it in. It's really impressive. Tracy Malloy has experience doing this in other cities. We're proud to support that work. And then it'll be on display through, I think, December 1st, so folks get a chance. The other thing is I want to thank the MAU athletes and coaches, specifically the cross-country running teams and the girls soccer team. We had a bonding experience as we participated in the Battle Day Parade on Sunday. For those of you who missed it, it was a warm, sweltering day. We got to sit on Safford and Gage Street for about an hour as we waited for the parade of fire trucks to go down Main Street. Had a grand old time waving and saw several of you out there. And it was a fun day to be had. And the goal next year is we'll get a few more varsity teams out there. That'd be good to see. It was nice to see the kids smiling, waving to people they knew. That was nice to see. I also want a really quick plug for Chris's alternative approach to summer programming. Had the pleasure of visiting students who worked through that to engage in a conversation with a kiddo who may not have found success during the school year, and just to see their passion and talk about their projects. It could be go-kart racing, it could be art, kids just lighting up. They got to pick their own topic, direct their own learning. They could present it in artwork and written word. Yeah, it was truly amazing. And I forget the young lady who did it all as a writing journal, clearly at an honors level. And I encouraged her to consider that as she goes to the high school. But well done to the staff and the teachers who support those kids.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Meant a lot to.
One last thing for this board, there is a SU board meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, the 27th at 5:30. This is part of the continuing work by the SU board, which is represented here by a number of members. Working with Tracy Rind as our facilitator. Our work on next Wednesday is to move toward goal setting by the board. As part of that process, I plan to provide an update on the position of assistant superintendent. I'll save that report for them. That was my promise to the chair. And then I'm happy to come back in the next month to give this board and other boards an update as we move through that process. But there will be an update, folks, if folks have an opportunity to watch that meeting on Cat TV and check in. That's it for me.
I have a comment for Superintendent Bean. I'm taking off my board hat for the moment and putting my banner hat on. If you don't know, we recently held our back to school event, and I want to thank, you and Katie West for all the cooperation you gave us for the insert. If you noticed, it was all SU content in there. Normally, we use AP content because we couldn't get any before, but now that, communication has been great.
Thank you for bringing that up because I was so happy to see that.
Yeah.
I noticed very much.
Yes.
And it was wonderful to see.
We appreciate it, it made my job a lot easier, except for the running around at Willow. Get too old for this.
You guys did great though. They had 1,000 people there. That's a big lift. So
We gave away 350 stuff backpacks, and it was, the event just grows and morphs every year. Yep.
that's awesome.
It is really wonderful.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a heavy lift for two people.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Superintendent Payne?
Well, one, there's a lot of information by the Vermont School Board Association in terms of superintendent and chairs and vice chairs training and all that other kind of stuff, and I don't know whether you had a chance to.
I was gonna highlight that.
We don't want to forget that because they supplement.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is a training on October 29th and for the board officer superintendent training and the annual conference for Vermont School Board Associations. And I was, asked before, in order to register, do you want people that email?
Yeah, we can help you with that.
If people want to email me, I will forward a list of names on, and we'll get people registered, but strongly urge.
To Leon's point, last week was orientation for new superintendents. There's 7 of us in the state of Vermont. We got to meet members of the Vermont School Boards Association. Yeah, so that's a 2-day workshop last week. We'll be traveling with Renee Gordon in September to Lake Maury for the business administrators. They asked to bring your superintendent. I do have a conflict in October with a family function on the 29th and 30th, but I will have an alternative plan to have a designee there, but would absolutely love to have board members plan to attend that. Again, trying to grow our presence at the state level would be helpful.
I got to go last year with Leon and it was wonderful. And my first time experiencing it was really, really amazing to network with other board members. But also they did a fabulous job of bringing students to share. And my niece was there, so that was a really fun little treat. They had kids performing and they had kids presenting projects. And it was really, really wonderful. It would be great if at some point some of our schools could also take part.
The only other item I had on my list for the chair's report is with a new superintendent, new school year. I just wanted to say, if there's topics or questions that the board members have for Superintendent Payne or other administrators, I think sending them to myself or Scott as the chair or the vice chair, and we will send them on to the superintendent so that he can gather that information.
I appreciate it. I just don't want to drop, several folks have sent me some emails. I just want to be conscientious and don't drop a request for information. So that.
That's it. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you.
Thank you. Same.
Recording stopped.